In this video, I'm going to describe the business case for integrating data. First of all, what do you do in business school? And I want to give a little bit of a personal story here as well. In undergrad, I went to Miami University and I majored in accounting and information systems and really thought I was going to be an accountant. Then, a few years after graduating there, I enrolled in UC's Masters of Business Administration School. And I concentrated in operations management, and I remember I had a class from a gentleman who had just recently earned his PhD and recently became a professor, and that was Dr. Michael Fry. And so when I was nearly finished with my MBA, the university hired me as a part-time professor in what's now the School of Information Technology. 17 years after that, my department head in SOIT asked me if I would be interested in teaching an XML and web services course in the School of Business because they had an opening, and I said, yeah, sure. I was really excited about this opportunity because it was a bit of a homecoming for me, an opportunity for me to talk about two things I've done a lot with and I'm really passionate about, and that is the combination of technology and business. Now, what do I remember from business school? A lot of case studies. And we tended to see a lot of case studies from very similar companies. In my era, it was Walmart, Procter & Gamble, Saturn, which incidentally is no longer around, Budweiser, Microsoft. You typically go to an MBA class and they'd talk about case studies, and you'd often see maybe 2 or 3 of these companies listed. So if you fast forward to today, 20 years later, it's interesting to see where the case studies are. They're really not on this same kind of Fortune 500 consumer products company that it used to be. Probably you'll see a few on Walmart and Microsoft, but it's a little different turn, and that's where we can consider how the role of integration has taken a bigger and bigger foothold in corporations and in profitability over the last 20 years. So, what is integration? Integration is combining data from different sources, and the amount of information that's available now is incredible. When I was in undergrad, the internet was really just happening, and it was really hard to find anything out there. But nowadays, you name it, there is probably a service that will provide the information you need. Calories in food, things like that, protein levels in food, recipes, weather data, historical weather data, so on and so forth. So there is no shortage of opportunity, even unique opportunities that may not have been explored yet. You just have to find the information and have the right idea. So we can think about 2 different sources of information. Publicly available information would be easy for anybody to copy. The good news about publicly available information is there's a lot of it, and there are certain agencies that produce it as part of their mission, like the government at several different levels, federal, state, and municipal, all produce a lot of data that's available to be consumed, and they want it to be consumed. Then there's proprietary data, which is a bit harder to replicate and gives you a competitive advantage. Think of things like customer reviews, which are essential to buying a product online. For many online marketplaces, that is their bread and butter, that is their competitive advantage, the depth of their product reviews. So when we're thinking integration, think about data being facts and information being knowledge. Data is good, but the real value add comes when you combine it together and create information, especially if you can do so off of some proprietary data or maybe user-generated data that's into your system. Now, our course has a title XML and Web Services, which is one way to do integration. I started teaching the course around 2017, and at that time, I wanted to reposition it a little bit. Still talk about XML and web services, but really look at a broader approach of integration and then consider the different ways that we can do integration. So yeah, we will cover XML and web services, but as part of a much bigger story of the business value of integration. So what value can we provide here? One is timely information, which it feels like that goes without saying, but that hasn't always been the case. An example that I think about a lot was my first-time job out of college. That took them, it was something like 28 days after the end of quarter to realize how much money they made in the quarter. So all quarter long, the C-level executives had no idea how profitable the company was. They had to wait for a series of jobs to run in order over 28 days at the end of the quarter and then find out. And naturally, without timely information, they're unable to make decisions in a timely manner. So by doing things in an integrated format instead of a input-output format of, here, I'll give you a file and you process it, we're able to find decision-making information much faster. Another thing that I remember very well back in the 90s, it was common that you go to the bank and deposit your check and you wouldn't see the balance update until the next day. So, and that's even if your bank had internet banking. If not, you'd have to go to a branch. So you kind of got in this habit of checking your bank balance each morning to see what processed overnight. Well, in the last 20 years, a lot of that has gone real time and online. So when you deposit a check, you see the confirmation in your account immediately. That's a lot more user-friendly. Imagine making a deposit and not seeing the confirmation. That can leave a lot of users to be confused. Another good one with timely information I think about, this is something that happened to me a while back. I was heading from Cincinnati to London, and I booked the shortest layover I could find and the shortest flight I could find. When I got to CVG, my connecting flight was late, and I got a message that they could rebook me on another flight that was also running late, and I would still be able to make the time in Heathrow as planned. And sure enough, I was able to do that, and I actually got to Heathrow a bit early. Well, what did they have to know? They had to know several things. Who I am, where I want to go, and they had to know that a different flight was also running late and was about to depart, and it had room for me to get on. So a lot of data put together all at once was able to get me to my destination actually faster than planned and keep me satisfied even though there was an interruption in service. What other value do we have? Think about information as a substitute product, and this is one I'm very passionate about, having studied horticulture a bit myself. But there's a concept called growing degree days, and plant and animal life science is timed off of this very simple formula, which is the high temperature of the day plus the low temperature of the day divided by 2, then subtract a base, which is usually 10. So just like so. Take that number and sum it up starting January 1 each year, and then simply reset every January 1, and it will tell you when certain events are going to occur in animal and plant science. So it's odd how much is timed by this, but one interesting thing is that the pests of plants are on the same timer as the plants themselves. And the pests might not emerge from the larval stage the same day every year, because it really depends on the accumulation or the summation of these growing degree days. So if a certain weevil came out on April 15th last year, it might be April 10th this year, might be April 20th. And that can have a big impact on when you might spray for that pest. Or maybe you don't even have to spray for that pest if you know they're coming out. Maybe you can take some integrated pest management and handle it in a more organic approach. But either way, with the information of the accumulated growing degree days, you can see what is about to happen. This is an example. On March 18th of 2020, we had accumulated 89 growing degree days. And you see these cards to the left are things that had already happened or had just happened. So the first bloom of the star magnolia, white pine weevil emergence, adult emergence, border forsythia. And then this tells us what's about to happen. The eastern tint caterpillar, which is a pest, is about to go into egg hatch. So you see that we can use that information to be very smart about when we apply insecticide, fungicide, herbicide, and even if we need to apply it. Now combine that with something else that's publicly available, weather data. Fungus tends to be a problem when we have wet weather. So you can take a look at historical weather patterns and determine if you're going to have bad fungus this year or not, and if you need to spray for it and how much. So you see that information is actually a substitute to physical hard assets. Now, another value, and this is really the holy grail, is to not only have proprietary data, but have the users generate it for us. And we see this all over the place. Facebook, that is their business model, user-generated content. Customer reviews, I mentioned earlier. For a lot of online marketplaces, that is their proprietary data, and their customers are generating it for them. GPS contributed photographs or just about anything contributed by GPS. The advent of the mobile device has given us this ability to tag things with GPS locations, and we suddenly have a whole lot of information that's based on GPS. YouTube, what's that? YouTube really doesn't create much, if any, content. They're just a content delivery network. They're just taking the data and making it available, and they're letting their users generate the content, and they're splitting some of the profits with them via advertisements. Similarly, GitHub. GitHub is not the same as Git. Git existed before GitHub. GitHub was just a way to centralize all the information on one place, and once again, user-generated data, so they're less likely to want to switch to another. The nice thing about this information business model is it's very asset light and margin rich, which means you don't have to spend a lot of money on assets. As a matter of fact, we know with the advent of cloud, you can really just scale up as your business scales up and pay for only what you need. Margin rich because you're essentially earning a commission, and that commission has very low variable cost. It's pretty much straight profit. So we think back to the earlier slide I had on the businesses where we did case studies back in 2000, Walmart, Procter & Gamble, Saturn, so on and so forth. Now take a look at where we tend to see a lot of case studies now. The new model, Airbnb, Uber, Lyft, those models where it's a lodging company that doesn't own any real estate or a ride service company that doesn't own any cars. Asset light, margin rich. So think about that and think about how we can apply our business school hats to these kind of unique situations and where we can create some kind of magic potion by combining both publicly available data and proprietary data. I hope this video has been helpful, and I look forward to reading your comments. Thank you.